I came into Barefoot about a year ago, and I originally came for pretty bad bilateral hand, finger, and arm pain. At first, I really didn't know what was causing it. I tried a number of different providers over the course of about 10 years, and nobody ever really gave me a diagnosis. And so I think I even went as far as getting nerve testing done to see if I had carpal tunnel, which at that time I didn't early on. And so I think I was kind of really lost in terms of my search for answers.
In June 2020, Olesya came into Barefoot Rehab with entire shoulder, forearm, hand, front and back symptoms. About 10 years prior, she had been on disability, so diagnosing her correctly was a really big deal.
I'd never really heard of something like this before. It definitely wasn't in the path of conventional medicine. But I think the beauty of chronic pain is that because it's so ever present, you will keep looking for answers until you hopefully find one. And so I discovered Barefoot, I think, on social media, either Instagram or Facebook, I can't recall. And I followed them for almost a year, kind of learning, I think, through their educational videos more about their techniques, because it sounded too good to be true. I really had never heard of a technique that can give you permanent relief from chronic pain. I thought that was not even really possible. And so having said all of that, the skepticism I think definitely is there for sure. Yeah, so the first doctor I saw was Dr. Joe.
So Olesya came to the office and her chief complaint is that when she sits at a desk for over an hour, she starts to get pins and needles into her pinky, her ring finger, into her arms, and then everything just feels super tight.
And because my pain was bilateral in both hands, they thought that it was like coming from my neck. And so I first began treatment with around my neck area, having also had a lot of adhesion discovered there. And so I think working with Joe was great because my neck pain was improving.
So after our examination, we determined that she has some degenerative disc disease, which means the disc in her neck is a little bit older. And as she sits there for an hour, 2 hours at the computer, her posture, the way she was sitting, her head was putting more pressure on that disc, and that was causing the symptoms going down her arm.
For my arms now, I see Dr. Chris.
During the exam, we confirmed that she had a ton of adhesion throughout everywhere that the nerves come out of the neck, going through the armpit and the subscap, going all the way into the forearm. Her shoulder range of motion was about 5 inches from touching her bicep on the right side, about 8 inches touching the left side. That's like 65 and 55% function, so that's a really big restriction. So whenever somebody has really big restrictions like this, it pretty much almost always indicates as adhesion.
So in terms of, what were really the reasons, I think, leading up to neck pain and back pain and arm pain, a lot of them were chronic. So I think a combination of bad posture, which I'm trying to not be mindful of as I'm sitting here on camera. And I think also just a combination of working in a sitting position at a desk in an office in a high pressure environment. So the combination of bad posture and stress, and I think a lot of sedentary work. What it was prohibiting was interesting because I think at first, it's kind of gradual, right? Like, what does chronic pain take away from you? And so at first it was, I couldn't do the things I wanted to do. Like I couldn't knit, I couldn't do anything that required a lot of movement with my fingers and arms. But then eventually, as the chronic pain increased over the years, it kind of took over areas of my life that were a have to do, like being able to really work. And so what ended up happening toward the end is that every day as I'd be working at the computer, toward the end of the day, I would be in so much pain that I would have to pause, foam roll my arms all the way down to my upper arms just so that I can continue working. And that really was signaling to me that I was running into trouble because I felt like I was living at the age of 32 at that time, really on borrowed time. And in terms of emotional attachment, I think kind of as chronic pain progresses, I think it definitely makes your world smaller. And so as it takes more and more away from you, I think you kind of become more and more constricted in not being able to do any of the things you love. And so I think the emotional attachment or the emotional response to all of that pain, I think, was a sensation of feeling really small in my body and also a lot of sadness. when you're in chronic pain and you've been in chronic pain for so long, you probably don't even realize how much of mental space it's taking up literally every single day. So you're not really able to be present in the way that you may want to be for your family, your friends, your job, whatever it may be. And in this case, it included my daughter. So I feel like with the constant program of chronic pain running in the back of my mind, I couldn't be the mother I wanted to be because I couldn't lift her as high. I couldn't really be in the play mode with her because I was constantly thinking, like, is this gonna make this worse? I love working with Dr. Joe. He's now seen my husband, my sister, and my grandmother, including myself. I think the experience is pleasant, light, and fun. It often feels like you're coming to see a good friend. And so I've actually brought my daughter with me to several appointments, and it literally just feels like you're hanging out. I think my neck treatments they aren't as painful as my arms. They're almost, it's not like a massage. It's definitely a sensation of a lot of pressure, but I'm never uncomfortable to the point where I can't continue with the treatment.
We are, fast forward a few months, Olesya is doing significantly better. She's able to sit at her computer pain-free. She knows when to take breaks. And overall, she doesn't have any more numbness into her hands or anything.
Working with Dr. Chris is actually an experience I think that everyone could say would be intense to a degree. It's also, I think, very eye-opening in the sense that he treats chronic pain from a multifactorial perspective. So it's not going to be, this is the one reason for why you're in pain. It's likely that there's deeper thought patterns or emotional patterns or nutritional patterns that are underlying, that are contributing to the pain. And so I think the great thing about Dr. Chris is that he helps patients to address pain from a multifactorial level. With the arms, it definitely gets a little trickier around the more sensitive areas. So I think when you have like less muscle or less fatty tissue, those areas are really sensitive. And so that's a really good practice and being able to breathe through the pain. But the great thing is once it's over, you almost forget that it even happened.
So long story short, after clearing out all the adhesion from the neck throughout our shoulder, all our forearm, she's about 90% better. We see her about once every couple of months, and we just maintain her because she still is typing a lot. And fortunately, she's been able to be largely symptom-free by getting all the adhesion removed.
I don't have any pain now, which is amazing. The culture is amazing. My husband even says that, and I won't steal his thunder, but he says that going there is some of the highlights of his week, really. The interaction with the people, I think, are probably a big component of the pain relief, is that you're in a culture where you're heard, you're understood, and you're taken care of. I've recommended already a lot of people. And so I really think that anyone who's been in pain and searching for answers, which can encompass pretty much, unfortunately, a really large percentage of the population, anyone that feels called when they see these videos or any of their other videos on social media, I think going to first pick up the phone and go through the screening process, I definitely would encourage everyone to do that. No, I think the world of possibilities, and not to sound corny, but really to understand now that aging doesn't have to equate with chronic pain. You are not doomed or destined to live in a smaller body or have your world get smaller every year because of pain.